Assume it happened yesterday. The time collapse method. Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard taught that the moment you stop waiting for your good and start remembering it, the whole machinery of time bends to meet you where you already are. There is a verse in the second letter of Peter, chapter 3, that most people read as a comment about God's patience. And never once as a description of their own mind it reads, "One day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day," and Neville would stop you right there and say, "Do you see it? The Lord is not a distant judge counting centuries on some far throne. The Lord is your own I am, the awareness that you are, and to that awareness, the awareness that names itself before every thought, a day and 1,000 years are the same substance, because time is not a river outside of you carrying you forward whether you like it or not. Time is a condition inside consciousness, and if a single day can hold 1,000 years, then a single act of imagination, held with feeling, can hold an entire future. Which means the wish you are still waiting to see arrive is not actually ahead of you on some far calendar page. It is available to you now, this instant, as something that can be entered and inhabited as though it had already happened. And the very delay you are suffering is not time's fault. It is the fault of where you have stationed your attention. You have been standing at the door marked someday, when the door marked already is standing open beside it the whole time. Say it with me. I am living now inside the wish already granted. I am remembering my future as a thing already finished. Imagination creates my reality. Again, I am living now inside the wish already granted. I am remembering my future as a thing already finished. Imagination creates my reality. If something in you just went quiet while you said that, honor it. That quiet is recognition. And I want you to type the 2 words "it's done" in the comments below, not as a wish you are casting out into some uncertain future, but as a report from the state you have just assumed. Let it be your seal. The first key is this. It is not tomorrow that is keeping your good from you. It is the address you have given your attention. Most people think of time as a long hallway, with the wish fulfilled locked away in some distant room they have not yet reached. And so they spend their days pacing the hallway, checking the handle, wondering how many more steps remain. But Neville taught that this whole hallway is a misunderstanding. Imagination does not walk down hallways. Imagination simply assumes, and the instant you assume the end, you are not closer to the room. You are standing inside it. Picture a man who has been waiting for a raise, he tells himself. When it comes, then I will feel secure. And so his security is always parked one paycheck ahead of him, forever a future guest that never quite checks in. But the moment he reverses the order, the moment he decides I am secure now, and lets that security be the feeling he carries into the office, into the elevator, into the quiet of his own evening, the raise is no longer something he is traveling toward. It is something the world must now arrange itself to match. Because it is not the raise that produces the feeling of security. It is the assumed feeling of security that produces the raise. And notice something else in this same man. On the days he waits, he is polite to his own worry. He feeds it. He checks his account the way a nervous traveler checks a departure board. And every glance at that board only confirms the same delay. But on the day he simply decides the address has changed, he stops consulting the board altogether. Because a man who already knows he has arrived has no reason to keep asking when the train comes. This is the whole of it. The outer world is not a fixed timetable you must wait upon. It is a servant that can only report back the state you have already taken up residence in. So ask yourself honestly this week, where have I stationed my attention? Am I standing at the door marked someday, checking it again and again out of habit? When the door marked already is standing wide open a few steps to the side, unnoticed simply because no one told you to look. This week, choose one thing you have been waiting on, something small enough to feel real, and simply stop waiting. Assume the address has already changed. Speak to yourself in the quiet of your own mind as the one for whom it is already true, not as a hopeful guess, but as a settled fact you are merely remembering. And watch how quickly the hallway disappears. because you were never actually walking down it. You were only imagining that you were. The hallway was never brick and mortar. It was only a habit of attention wearing the costume of time. I am standing inside the answer, not walking toward it. The second key is this. It is not the picture in your mind that dates your assumption. It is the feeling underneath the picture. You can imagine a scene with perfect clarity, every color placed correctly, every word spoken exactly as you'd want it, and still be living in hope rather than in fact. Because hope has a particular flavor, a leaning forward quality, a slight tension in the chest, as if the good thing is still out there somewhere, still waiting to be earned, still needing your effort to drag it closer. But memory has a completely different flavor. Memory rests. Memory does not strain. When you remember your last birthday, you do not brace yourself for it to happen. You simply know that it happened, and that knowing is calm all the way through. No lean, no ache, no watching the door. This is the exact feeling Neville pointed to when he said to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not assume the picture, assume the feeling. Because feeling is what stamps an assumption with a date, and the date you want stamped on your wish is not tomorrow, it is yesterday. Consider a young man wanting to belong somewhere, to feel counted among friends who value him. If he pictures the gathering perfectly, the table, the laughter, the seat saved for him, but underneath that picture his stomach still tightens with the old ache of being left out. He has painted a lovely picture and dated it with the wrong feeling. He has hung a memory's clothing on a hope's body. So instead, Neville would have him stop perfecting the picture and start softening the feeling. Let him remember, right now, the ease of already belonging, the way a person feels leaning back in a chair among people who already know and want him there. No proving required, no performance needed. That same soft, settled feeling, once summoned, becomes the true signature of the wish fulfilled. Once you can produce that signature at will, on command, without needing the outer world's permission first, you have learned to date your assumption exactly where it belongs, not in some anxious future you must keep checking on, but gently, quietly, already behind you, the way an old friend's voice on the phone feels behind you the moment the call ends. This is why Neville always insisted that feeling. Not vividness, not detail, not clever visualization is the secret. A dim picture soaked in the true feeling of finality will outwork a brilliant picture soaked in longing every single time. So practice this today. Take the very thing you are hoping for, and instead of asking how clearly can I see it, ask how calmly can I remember it. Let the calm be your proof, not the picture. I feel it finished, and a finished thing needs no more asking. The third key is this, and it is the deepest use of memory Neville ever taught, because if the feeling of the wish fulfilled can date an imagined future as though it were past, then the same faculty can reach back and actually touch a day that has already happened. This is what he called revision, taking a scene from your actual day, one that did not sit right with you, and living it again in imagination exactly as you wish it had gone, not as wistful daydreaming, but as a deliberate act of authorship. And I want you to notice the objection that rises in you right now, the voice that says, "But it already happened. How can I possibly change what is already done?" And Neville would answer that gently but firmly, "It is not the past that is fixed, it is your willingness to accept it as final that fixes it. The day you just lived is not sealed the way you think it is. It is still soft, still workable, right up until you fall asleep and let it harden into fact. Because what you call the past is nothing more than a memory. And memory is not stone, memory is imagination looking backward instead of forward. The same faculty, the very same substance, only pointed in a direction you assumed was closed to you. Picture a woman who had a cold exchange with her employer that afternoon. Words a little sharp, a door closed a little too firmly. She replays it on the drive home. She replays it again over dinner. She tells a friend about it on the phone, and each retelling presses the scene deeper, hardens it further, until by the time she lies down, it feels as permanent as the furniture in her room. If she carries that hardened scene forward unchanged, She is handing tomorrow a seed grown from today's coldness. Tomorrow's meeting will begin where tonight's memory left off. But suppose instead, before sleep, she does something almost nobody thinks to do. She closes her eyes and lives the scene again on purpose. This time she hears her employer's voice warm instead of clipped. She feels the ease return to the room. She imagines the small appreciation that was missing, the nod, the softer tone, and she does not perform this once quickly and move on. She lingers there. She goes over it 2 times, 3 times, the way you would go over a favorite piece of music, until your fingers no longer have to think about where to fall, until the revised version feels more real to her than the memory of what actually occurred. And this is the exact test Neville gave for whether a revision has taken, not whether you can picture it, but whether it now feels more natural to recall than the original sting. Here is the secret hidden inside the time collapse method itself. When you revise a day this way, you are not merely improving your mood about the past, you are quietly assuming that the true version of yesterday was always the kind one, and the version your senses reported was only ever a rough draft, mistaken for the final page, which means tomorrow, which grows out of today's revised state rather than today's raw event, arrives already carrying the warmth she planted the night before. Notice, too, that this is not confined to dramatic wounds. It works just as well on the small daily frictions almost everyone lets pass unexamined. The impatient word to a child at breakfast, the flinch of embarrassment in a meeting, the moment you wished you had answered more kindly. Each of these, left unrevised, quietly becomes part of the soil your tomorrow grows from, and each of these, revised gently before sleep, becomes instead a small deposit of grace. This is time collapse working in the other direction from what we spoke of a moment ago. Instead of pulling a future event backward into the felt certainty of yesterday, you are reaching backward, gently reshaping yesterday, and letting a new tomorrow rise from that reshaped ground. Either direction, the mechanism is the same. Imagination, not fact, is what your future obeys. So tonight, before you sleep, take one moment from today that pinched you, however small, and simply live it again the better way. Do not force it. Do not grip it. Do not argue with what actually happened. Just walk through it once more, kindly, patiently, the way you would smooth a wrinkled cloth with your hand, until it settles. I remake this day gently, and let tomorrow rise from the better version. The fourth key is this. It is not the clock on your wall that decides which moment is real for you. It is which state you are occupying while the clock ticks. And Neville taught this plainly when he said you do not move through time, you move through states. And states are far more like rooms in a house than they are like miles on a road. You can walk from one room into another in a single breath. And the hour on the clock never notices. It keeps ticking the same whether you are standing in worry or standing in certainty. So let us walk one ordinary day together and watch this happen in plain daylight. 7 in the morning, a woman wakes, and before her feet even touch the floor, there is a choice hiding inside that first breath. Does she wake as the one still waiting for the letter to arrive? Or as the one who has already read it, 9 o'clock? She is at her desk, and the old evidence is sitting right there waiting for her. The same unpaid bill, the same silence where an answer should be. And she can let that evidence hand her estate the way a stranger hands you a coat that does not fit. Or she can quietly refuse it and assume the end, regardless of what the desk shows her. Noon, a coworker asks how things are going, and her answer, however small, however casual, is either a rehearsal of the old lack dressed up as small talk, or a soft announcement of the new assumption she has chosen to live inside. 3 in the afternoon, tired now, tempted to check the evidence again, the way a hand keeps wandering back to a sore tooth, she can return, gently, to the very feeling she chose at 7, not gripping it, not straining after it, just returning to it the way you return your eyes to a window you love. 6 in the evening, home, the day behind her, and here is the astonishing part hiding inside all of this. The day itself did not decide her state. Her state decided how the entire day would be lived. minute by minute, which means two people can pass through the very same 24 hours, the same sunrise, the same headlines, the same weather, and live in two entirely different worlds, one still pacing outside a locked door, one already resting inside the room. This is what it means that time is not one great river everyone is forced to float down together. It is a private assumption each person carries quietly through an identical set of hours. It is not the hour that shapes the man, it is the man who shapes the hour. So pause for a moment and pick one small thing you have been waiting on this week, and choose, right now, the state you will wake into tomorrow concerning it. Decide it before your feet touch the floor, and then simply return to that same state on purpose, at 9, at noon, at 3, at 6, not as a chore you perform, but the way you would return, again and again, without even thinking about it, to a favorite chair. I choose my state at sunrise, and I return to it all day long. And here, before we go further, if this teaching is settling into you the way still water settles, let it also settle into a habit. Subscribe so the next key finds you when you need it. There is more collapsing of time still ahead, and I would love for you to be here for it. The fifth key is this, and it is the deepest one, because it does not hand you a single technique, it hands you three, woven together like three strands of one rope, and none of them work fully alone, so let us take them one at a time, slowly, the way you would walk through a house you intend to live in for the rest of your life. First, consider persistence in the assumption, because the world you have been perceiving with your senses did not build itself in a day, and it will not dissolve in a day either. Imagine a man who has just finished a strong interview for work he wants badly. He comes home that evening and decides, on purpose, to assume it is his. He speaks to himself as the one already hired. He pictures the desk, the first morning, the relief on his own face when he tells someone dear the news. And for an hour or two this feels wonderful. But by the next afternoon his phone has not rung, and by the third day the silence has grown heavier, and this is the exact place where most people quietly let go of the assumption they tell themselves it did not work, and they slide back into checking, refreshing, worrying, waiting for the outer world to speak first. But Neville taught that the outer world is only the past, arriving late to announce a decision already made in imagination. There is always a lag. The seed does not become the tree by sundown, and persistence is not gritting your teeth. Persistence is simply refusing to let the empty phone talk you out of what you have already assumed to be true. So the man who continues, who keeps carrying himself through his days as the one already hired, sitting a little differently, speaking a little differently, is not fooling himself, he is being loyal to a fact only he can currently see, until the world has no honest choice left but to catch up and confirm it. And notice what persistence actually costs him. It does not cost him effort in the way struggling costs effort. It costs him only this, that each time the old evidence knocks, he does not answer the door. He simply returns, quietly, to the assumption he had already chosen, the way you would return your gaze to a friend across a noisy room after a stranger briefly distracted you. This is all persistence has ever been. Not a battle fought once and won, but a small returning, repeated as many times as the day requires. Second, consider the state Neville called akin to sleep, because he taught that the door between imagination and fact swings widest in the hush, just before sleep takes you. In that drowsy borderland, the arguing mind finally lets go of the wheel, and whatever scene you dwell in there sinks in almost unguarded, past the part of you that keeps score of evidence. This is why the time collapse method belongs most of all to the last few minutes before sleep. Lying still, the day's tensions loosening one by one, and there, instead of replaying the silent phone or rehearsing tomorrow's worry, you enter the small imagined scene that implies the wish is already fact, not gripping it, not performing it like a chore, but drifting into it, the way you would drift into a memory you love returning to. Feel how it would actually feel to already have the answer in hand. And let that felt sense be the very last thing your mind touches before the room dissolves into sleep. Picture the same man again, 3 nights into the silence, lying in the dark, And instead of counting the hours since the interview, he imagines a hand on his shoulder, a voice saying congratulations, we are glad to have you. He does not need new words. He does not need a longer scene, he only needs it felt as already so, and he lets that single felt moment be the last thing he touches before the room goes quiet around him. Because sleep itself is a kind of time collapse, the mind performs every night without being asked. In sleep, the calendar stops governing you. Yesterday and tomorrow lose their fences. And whatever state you fall asleep believing has a strange habit of waking up formed in the world around you, this is not superstition. It is the same imaginative faculty that builds an ordinary dream, only now you are the one choosing what it builds. And this is why Neville would say that the few minutes before sleep are worth more than hours of anxious daytime effort, because in those few minutes, the censor that argues with you all day has finally gone quiet, and imagination, unguarded, is free to plant exactly what you have given it. Third, consider that everyone you meet in your day is you, pushed out, wearing another face. This sounds strange until you watch it operate in your own life. The man waiting on the job noticed, once he began to persist quietly in his assumption, that a friend he had not spoken to in months suddenly called only to mention, almost in passing, an opening at another company, and later, that a stranger at a counter treated him with a warmth that had nothing to do with anything he had said or done. These were not lucky accidents dropped in to reward him. Neville taught they were the outer world doing exactly what a mirror does, reflecting back to him the very state he had been secretly assuming inside. And if this feels difficult to believe, consider it from the other direction for a moment. Think of a day when you carried worry openly on your face without meaning to, and noticed how strangers seemed short with you, how small delays felt larger, how the whole day seemed to lean against you. That was never the world conspiring against you. That was only your own state, met at every turn. So when you assume it happened yesterday, and let that quiet certainty settle into how you carry yourself, watch the people around you begin, almost without explanation, to speak and act as though it were already so. This is not coincidence arriving to convince a skeptic. It is your own state, pushed outward, greeting you in 100 small faces. Now put the three together. Persistence that refuses to let old evidence argue you out of the assumption, sleep that carries the assumed scene down past the reach of argument altogether, and the daily mirror of other people quietly confirming what you have already become, and you are no longer someone hoping across a distance. You are someone living already inside a completed fact, simply waiting, patiently, kindly, for the world's slower clock to finish saying what your own has already said. I persist gently, I sleep into the end, and the faces around me only show me myself. The sixth key is this: it is not really about yesterday or tomorrow at all. It is about the I am that stands quietly outside both. Before Abraham was, Neville loved to remind us I am, not I was, not I will be, simply I am, the eternal present in which every so-called yesterday and every so-called tomorrow are only names given to a single ever-present now. And this is the part most people rush past, because they think collapsing time is a technique for getting things faster, when really it is a return to what was always true before they ever learned to be afraid of the clock. Picture a man standing in the house he grew up in, long since sold to strangers, torn down, replaced by something newer, and yet when he closes his eyes, that house is not gone. It is not far away in some sealed vault called the past. It rises complete the instant he turns his attention there. The porch, the smell of the hallway, his mother's voice from the kitchen, none of it had to travel across 40 years to reach him. It was simply there, waiting in the same now he is standing in right this moment. And Neville would say, this is exactly how your wish already lives. Not 40 years back, but no further away than that house either. It is not waiting somewhere down the road. It is only waiting on your attention. So when you assume it happened yesterday, you are not performing a clever trick on the calendar. You are remembering the truth that there was never really a calendar to outwit in the first place. There was only ever this now, and the state you choose to stand in within it. It is not that yesterday is behind you and tomorrow ahead of you. It is that both were always right here, folded into the single I am that has never once moved, never once aged, never once been anywhere but present. So let the phrase soften in your mind. Assume it happened yesterday simply means stop bargaining with a future that keeps receding. Stop treating your good as a stranger you must go out and find, and rest, right here, in the finished feeling. The way you would rest in any memory that no longer needs defending. Notice how a true memory asks nothing of you. It does not need convincing. It does not need evidence. It simply is. And this is the same restfulness your wish is asking you to grant it right now. Not someday when it finally proves itself, but now, before any proof, because proof was always going to follow the assumption. Never precede it. This is the quiet end of the whole method. Not more striving, not more checking the clock, not more asking whether enough time has passed. Just a calm citizen of the eternal now, wearing the assumption like a favorite old coat, already home, already arrived, already living the very thing you once thought was still so far away. I am, and in that I am. Yesterday and tomorrow both bow to now. Here is the whole picture. It is not the calendar that withholds your good. It is the address of your attention. It is not the picture in your mind that convinces you. It is the feeling of memory beneath the picture. It is not yesterday that is fixed and unreachable. It is soft enough to revise until tomorrow rises kinder from it. It is not the day's events that decide your experience. It is the state you choose at sunrise and return to all day. It is not the outer evidence that has the final word. It is your persistence, your nightly sleep, and the faces around you that only ever mirror you back to yourself. And it is not really time you have been collapsing at all. It is the illusion that now and yesterday and tomorrow were ever truly separate. They were always one imagination, wearing three different names. There is nothing to fear in any of this, and nothing to force. If your past holds moments you wish had gone differently, you are not condemned to carry them forward unchanged. You were simply never told you could go back gently and mend them. And if your future feels far off, you were simply never told it is only a memory you have not yet allowed yourself to feel. This teaching does not ask you to strain toward some distant reward. It asks you to rest, the way you rest in something already settled, and let the world, slower than imagination but faithful to it, catch up. Say it once more with me. I am living now inside the wish already granted. I am remembering my future as a thing already finished. Imagination creates my reality. And so tonight, when you lie down, do not wait for tomorrow to bring your good. Remember it, the way you would remember something dear that already happened yesterday, and let that quiet remembering be enough.